The groom said my name out loud, clear enough for the entire wedding hall to hear. For a moment, the laughter, the music, the clinking of glasses stopped. Every head turned toward me, the sister no one had bothered to notice until that second. Had been sitting at the farthest table, close to the exit, where the waiters passed by without looking me in the eye. My dress was wrinkled from the long drive, my heels already biting into my feet. No one had asked if I needed anything. No one even acknowledged me. My sister, the bride, hadn't greeted me properly when I arrived. It was as if I was a guest, from a distant town, someone they barely knew, not her own blood. The hall sparkled with white lights hanging from the ceiling, casting reflections on polished glasses filled with champagne. The smell of roasted chicken and wine lingered in the air. Relatives chatted in groups. Couples laughed as if this was the happiest day of their lives. My parents floated around the room, acting like proud hosts, pretending everything was perfect. But I knew how false it was. For years, I had been the one overlooked, excluded from conversations, always watching from the edge. I tried to distract myself by tracing the pattern on the tablecloth, pretending I didn't feel the sting of being ignored. My cousin passed by me without a word, carrying gifts to the main table. My aunt raised her glass and toasted my sister's new life without even glancing in my direction. I swallowed hard, the loneliness settling heavier with each passing second. Then, the microphone squealed slightly as the groom raised it to his lips. His eyes swept the crowd until they locked on mine. My chest tightened. Why was he looking at me? Why was he calling my name? Here, in front of everyone. Whispers spread quickly. Guests turned their heads, leaning forward to get a better view. Some even smiled awkwardly, expecting maybe a joke. My sister's face, though, shifted. Her wide smile faltered, and for the first time that night, her eyes truly met mine. There was something sharp in her look, almost a warning. I froze. The groom cleared his throat, still staring at me, waiting for me to stand or respond. The silence stretched, longer, making the air in the hall heavy, suffocating. My hands trembled against the table. I wanted to disappear, but I couldn't move. Every second felt like the start of something I wasn't prepared for. My sister's wedding was supposed to be her night. But why was her groom suddenly pulling me into it? The next words out of his mouth made my blood run cold. And once they were spoken, there would be no way to take them back. The groom's voice echoed across the hall. She's the reason I'm standing here today. Gasps rippled through the tables. A few people laughed nervously, assuming he was making some clumsy attempt at a joke, but his eyes stayed locked on me, unblinking, serious. The microphone picked up every word, every pause. My sister stiffened, her hand tightening around her bouquet until her knuckles turned pale. "What are you doing?" she hissed. But her voice didn't reach the guests. To them, it looked like she was just smiling, just another blushing bride. I felt heat rise in my cheeks as whispers swirled. Me? The reason he was standing here? I hadn't spoken to him more than twice before this wedding. I barely even knew him. I had nothing to do with their relationship. Or so I thought. The groom cleared his throat again. "If it weren't for her, I never would have met your daughter," he said, turning toward my parents. His words sent a shockwave through the hall. My mother's hand froze midair, glass of champagne trembling slightly. My father's smile faltered. Their eyes darted toward me as if searching for an explanation, one I didn't have. I wanted to speak, to demand clarity, but my tongue felt heavy. My heart pounded in my chest, louder than the murmurs spreading across the room. What was he talking about? Then I remembered. A small, forgotten moment. Years ago, at a charity dinner, I had introduced a young man to my sister. I barely recalled his name. He had been polite, quiet, and grateful for the introduction. Could it have been him? Was that the groom, standing now in front of hundreds of people, Giving me credit I never asked for? If it was, then why did it feel wrong? Why did it feel like there was something he wasn't saying out loud? The bride's jaw tightened. She leaned in and muttered something to him, her voice low but sharp. He shook his head, gripping the microphone tighter, refusing to back down. The tension between them was obvious now, impossible to hide from the guests. I shifted uncomfortably in my chair. All eyes were still on me. Some guests looked curious, others suspicious. My cousin whispered behind her hand, her eyes darting between me and the couple. My aunt frowned, as if she was already piecing together a story I didn't want told. Then, without warning, the groom stepped down from the stage and began walking toward me. Each step echoed on the marble floor, steady, deliberate. My breath caught in my throat. He wasn't stopping. He was coming straight to me. My sister's voice finally cracked through the noise. "Don't you dare!" The hall went silent again. Every gaze followed him as he reached my table, leaned down, and whispered just loud enough for the microphone to catch. "You know the truth, don't you?" My mouth went dry. "What truth?" I whispered back, my voice trembling. But the groom didn't answer me directly. Instead, he straightened, the microphone still in his hand, and looked back at the crowd. "She knows why this family has treated her the way they have, don't you?" A collective gasp filled the hall. My pulse pounded in my ears. My parents shifted uncomfortably, my mother's eyes narrowing at him, my father's lips pressed into a thin line. My sister, the bride, was shaking her head furiously, as if she could erase his words with her denial alone. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady, even as my hands trembled. But the groom's expression told me otherwise. He believed I did know. Or maybe he wanted me to. "I met her first," he said suddenly, pointing at me. The hall went dead silent. Before I ever met the bride. Years ago. My stomach dropped. The memory flashed in my head again. The charity, dinner, the polite young man, the casual conversation I'd forgotten almost immediately. He was that man. He had been looking for me that night, not my sister. And yet, my sister had claimed him, drawn him into her orbit, and no one had ever told me. Gasps and murmurs spread faster now, the whispers loud enough to echo. My cousin covered her mouth. My aunt muttered something about stolen chances. I could feel the weight of every gaze pressing into me. My sister's face was burning red now. "Stop this! This is my wedding!" she snapped, her voice finally breaking through the mask of control. She stormed forward, grabbing the microphone from his hand, but he refused to let go. The two of them struggled for a second, the tension between them spilling out in front of everyone. And then my mother stood. Her voice, sharp and cold, cut through the chaos. "Enough. You've said too much." The groom laughed bitterly. "I've barely started." My father moved toward the stage, his jaw clenched, his eyes fixed on me as if I was suddenly the problem, not the one being dragged into this. My chest tightened. Was I about to be blamed again? Just like always? The groom dropped the microphone, letting it thud against the floor, and leaned in close to me. His words were low, almost drowned by the commotion, but I caught them. "They kept something from you, something you should have known years ago." I froze. My heart hammered against my ribs. "What is it?" I asked, but he was already walking away, leaving me standing in the middle of the hall, every eye on me, every whisper louder than the last. And then my sister shouted the words that would change everything. "She's not supposed to know." The words hung in the air like smoke. She's not supposed to know. The hall erupted in chaos. Guests stood from their seats, whispering and demanding answers. My parents froze, but the guilt in their faces told me everything. I turned toward my sister, my voice sharp and shaking. "Not supposed to know what?" Her lips parted, but she glanced at my parents as if waiting for permission. My father barked. That's enough. This family's business is not for everyone to hear. But it was too late. The groom had set the fire, and there was no way to put it out. He lifted the microphone again, his voice steady. She deserves to know. She deserves the truth. My chest tightened as I braced myself, and then he said it. She's the firstborn. Not you. The hall went dead silent. I blinked, trying to process the words. My parents' faces told the rest of the story. For years, they had treated me like the unwanted child, the mistake. I had always believed I was simply the disappointment, the one who never fit. But now I understood. I was the rightful heir to everything, the estate, the name, the legacy they had poured into my sister. No, my sister snapped, her voice breaking. She was never supposed to take my place. You told me I was the chosen one. You said she was nothing. I felt my knees weaken, but I refused to fall. The betrayal ran so deep it burned, but beneath it was something else, clarity. The missing piece of every cold glance, every whispered dismissal, every moment I was pushed aside. I looked straight at my parents. You lied to me my entire life. You made me believe I was worthless. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. You raised me in shadows so she could shine, but it was never hers to begin with. My mother tried to speak, but I raised my hand. For once, I didn't let her control the moment. I don't want your house. I don't want your money. I just want you to know that you lost me. You don't get to decide who I am anymore. Gasps filled the hall as I walked toward the exit, the guests parting silently in my path. My sister sobbed behind me, clutching her gown as if it could hold her world together. The groom didn't follow me. He simply watched, his expression unreadable, almost relieved. Outside, the cool night air hit my face. For the first time in years, I felt free. The lies no longer chained me. I wasn't the forgotten sister anymore. I was myself, finally whole. And yet, as I reached my car, a folded note was tucked under the wiper, my name written on it in my father's handwriting. I froze, the paper shaking in my hand. Because whatever I thought was the truth, there was still more they hadn't told me.